I wasn't snooping. I need to make that clear. It all started on a Friday morning, the kind where nothing seems off, and that's what makes it worse, because betrayal doesn't always come with warning signs. Sometimes, it shows up quietly, like a buzzing phone in a glove compartment. It was around 8:30 a.m., and I was about to take my wife's car in for an oil change. Jamie had asked me to drop it off at Jiffy Lube because her morning was packed with meetings. We lived in a quiet neighborhood just outside of Denver, Colorado, Golden, to be exact. One of those places with good schools, farmers markets on Saturdays, and neighbors who wave at you from their driveways. The kind of place where people like me, average, reliable, loyal, thought they had everything figured out. I got into the driver's seat, adjusted the seat because Jamie always pushed it too far forward, and was about to pull out of the driveway when I heard it, a faint buzz, almost imperceptible. I thought maybe it was my own phone, but no. Mine was in my pocket, silent. There it was again. Buzz. Buzz. I followed the sound. Glove compartment. I opened it expecting maybe her work phone. Jamie works in marketing for a tech startup downtown, the kind where people wear sneakers and drink kombucha in meetings. I figured maybe she forgot her phone or left it charging somewhere. But what I found wasn't her work phone. It wasn't the sleek iPhone she always carried in her purse. It was a cheap burner, some off-brand Android with a cracked corner and no case. I almost laughed. Then I noticed the lock screen light up with another message. Buzz. Can't stop thinking about last night. You drive me crazy. My stomach dropped. You know that feeling when you're at the edge of a cliff, and you think for a second your balance is gone? That was me, sitting in the driveway in a car that suddenly felt foreign. I stared at the message. Then the screen dimmed again. I didn't want to open it. I really didn't. But I did. The phone wasn't even password protected. That alone told me how confident she was that it would never be found. What I saw next made my skin crawl. There were dozens of messages. Photos. Voice notes. And the contact name. Caleb. My brother. My younger brother. The golden boy of the family. The one who somehow managed to make everything look effortless. He was charming, athletic, made a fortune in real estate flipping homes in Boulder, and had that cocky smile that made people forgive him before he even apologized. He always had a girl on his arm, always telling me I needed to loosen up. My wife. Jamie. She hated that he flirted with everyone. Or so she said. The messages were explicit. Not just flirty, not just suggestive. Full-on vulgar. There were things in there she had never said to me in the 10 years we'd been married. And more than that, there were dates. Locations. Little coded references to places I recognized. One message said. That Airbnb in Estes Park was perfect. Can't wait for the next business trip. I couldn't breathe. I sat in that car with my hands gripping the steering wheel like it would keep me anchored to reality. A bird landed on the mailbox. A jogger passed by. The world kept moving like nothing had happened. I didn't go to Jiffy Lube. I didn't even leave the driveway. I just sat there, trying to figure out when my life had started crumbling without me noticing. Jamie and I had been married for 10 years. We met in college, University of Colorado Boulder. She was studying communications, I was getting a degree in business administration. We weren't some whirlwind romance, we were steady, consistent. Everyone called us the old married couple even before we hit 30. But I liked that. I wanted stability. I wanted someone who didn't play games. Guess I was the only one. We had our problems, sure. Who doesn't? Sex wasn't as spontaneous as it used to be, work kept us busy, and sometimes we passed each other like roommates. But I never, not once, thought she'd cheat. And with him. That was the part that felt like a dagger between the ribs. Caleb and I were never especially close, but we were brothers. We grew up sharing a room, riding bikes through the suburbs of Colorado Springs, getting into trouble, covering for each other. I helped him move into his first apartment. He helped me renovate the basement. He came to our wedding. Gave a toast. And now? He was sleeping with my wife. My wife. I didn't confront her that day. I couldn't. I needed to think. To plan. Because rage is a funny thing, it doesn't always explode. Sometimes, it simmers. And in that moment, something inside me went very quiet. Cold. I took photos of the texts. Every last one. I recorded a few of the voice messages, including one where Jamie laughed and said, "He's so gullible. I think he actually believes I'm working late." I couldn't stop shaking. I put the phone back exactly where I found it. That evening, when she came home, she kissed me on the cheek and asked how my day was. Just like always. I looked her in the eye and smiled. "Nothing special," I said. "Yours." She started talking about a Zoom meeting that ran long. Something about a client in Chicago. I nodded. Pretended to listen. And in that moment, I knew exactly what I was going to do. Revenge. Not a dramatic scene with shouting and broken dishes, not yet. That would be too easy. I wanted them to feel it. I wanted them to squirm. To think they were still getting away with it. I wanted to pull the rug out from under them at the exact moment they felt safest. But first, I needed more. Proof. Patterns. Leverage. So I started watching. Listening. Tracking her excuses. When she said she was working late, I'd drop by her office and surprise her. When she said she was with friends, I'd check her location. Yes, she had shared it with me years ago, and clearly forgotten. It didn't take long. One Thursday night, she said she had a women's networking mixer in Boulder. I checked the location. She was at a private house just outside the Flatirons. I zoomed in on the map. Caleb's place. That night, I didn't confront her. I watched the location sit still for 3 hours, then move slowly back toward our neighborhood. She walked in at 10:13 p.m., hair slightly tousled, wearing the red blouse I always loved. "I missed you," she said, wrapping her arms around me like everything was fine. And I smiled again. "Me too," I whispered. But now I had everything I needed. And I was ready to act. They thought they were clever. Careful. But the thing about betrayal is, it makes you underestimate the person you're betraying. And I wasn't going to just expose them. I was going to destroy them. After that day, everything between Jamie and me turned into a performance. I wasn't living anymore, I was acting. And I have to admit, I played the role well. Because if you want to destroy a traitor, you first have to make them feel safe. Make them believe the world is still spinning just right. I started waking up earlier than usual, making her cinnamon coffee just the way she liked it. I complimented her outfits, asked about her day. Sometimes, I'd leave little notes on her pillow with phrases like, "You're my everything." She'd giggle, kiss my forehead, and leave for her meetings, when in reality, she was probably going off to sleep with my brother. But the fury inside me had cooled. What took its place was something far more dangerous: clarity. A stillness that let me think without the haze of emotion. I wasn't just angry anymore. I was calculating. I needed to know more than just those texts. If I wanted to make them pay, I needed to understand the full picture. And that meant looking my brother in the eye. I showed up at Caleb's place on a Saturday afternoon. Unannounced. We hadn't seen each other in weeks. He'd been busy with projects, I'd been tied up with work. The truth? I couldn't stand the thought of being around him. But now I needed to. I had to hear him lie to my face. Watch how he did it. He lived in a modern 2-story home in a Boulder suburb. Nothing special, concrete and glass, big TV, minimalist furniture, his prized Ford Raptor in the driveway. A bachelor's kingdom. He opened the door with that same crooked smile he always had, the one that used to seem charming before I knew the truth. "Look who it is," he said. "Man, this is a surprise. Get in here." He gave me a hug. I forced myself not to recoil. His cologne smelled sickeningly sweet, the same scent I'd caught on Jamie's clothes earlier that week. "Figured it was time we caught up," I said, stepping inside. "Too long." We settled on the back patio with a couple of beers. It was warm out, and birds chirped somewhere in the trees behind the fence. He seemed relaxed. Comfortable. Like nothing was wrong. "So how's Jamie?" he asked casually. There it was. A test. A tiny probe to check if I suspected anything. "She's great," I said, looking him straight in the eye. "We're planning a trip. Thinking Hawaii, just the two of us. Some quality time, you know." I watched his face. His smile didn't falter, but there was a flicker of something, hesitation, maybe. His hand holding the beer paused midair. "Sounds awesome," he said finally. "You two have always been solid. I'm happy for you." Liar. I imagined that same hand grabbing her waist. That same voice whispering things to her behind my back. It made my skin crawl. But I kept smiling. Later that night, I went into the office at home, locked the door, and sat in front of my laptop. I inserted the flash drive I'd bought earlier that day, a brand new one, 64 gigs, still in its packaging. I started transferring everything, screenshots of their messages, audio recordings I'd managed to capture from our car's Bluetooth memory, photos of the second phone. Each file was renamed, organized by date, geotagged when possible. I wanted a timeline, a narrative. A confession they didn't even know they'd written. And then I backed it all up to the cloud, just in case. I didn't know what I was going to do with it yet. Send it to friends. Her parents. His clients. Maybe upload it all to a burner social media account with a message like, "My wife and brother have been screwing behind my back. Enjoy the show." But no. That felt cheap. Petty. I needed something bigger. Something that would break them slowly. A few nights later, I woke up and realized Jamie wasn't in bed. I checked my phone, 2:17 a.m. The house was quiet except for the hum of the refrigerator downstairs. I got up, padded into the kitchen. She was standing there in her pajama shorts and a tank top, drinking water straight from the bottle. "Couldn't sleep?" I asked. She jumped a little, startled, then smiled nervously. "Bad dream. Something about a fire. I didn't want to wake you." She looked so casual. So normal. Just a wife getting a drink of water in the middle of the night. But all I could think about was her naked under my brother, moaning his name. "I'm here," I said softly. "You're safe." She nodded and walked past me, back toward the stairs. I watched her go, and something inside me twisted. Not out of love. Out of disgust. The following week, she told me she'd be gone for a few days. "Corporate retreat," she said, tossing clothes into a suitcase. "Some team-building thing. Mostly lectures and icebreakers. Super boring." "Where to?" "Estes Park. That resort near the lake." I nodded slowly. "Want me to drive you up?" She blinked. "That's sweet, but no. We're carpooling. Taking the company van." I smiled. "All right. Text me when you get there." She kissed me on the cheek, grabbed her bag, and left. I waited 30 minutes, then got in my car and started driving. What Jamie didn't know was that I'd installed a GPS tracker on the second phone before I put it back where I found it. She'd hidden it in her yoga bag this time, clever, but not clever enough. I watched the little dot move on my screen as she left Boulder. But she didn't take the highway to Estes Park. She was heading south. Denver. Specifically, to a boutique hotel downtown. I zoomed in on the map and saw the name, the Arvada Suites. I parked across the street 20 minutes later and waited. She arrived in an Uber, not a company van. Alone. No suitcase. She went inside without hesitation, like she'd been there before. I waited 10 more minutes. Then I saw him. Caleb. He pulled up in his Raptor, checked his phone, and casually walked into the same building. I didn't move. Didn't blink. I just sat there in the dark, engine off, hands on the steering wheel. The truth was out in the open now. No more wondering. No more doubts. They were together. In a hotel. While I was at home making her coffee and whispering lies to lull her into comfort. I drove home that night with a strange sense of peace. Because now I knew what had to be done. You'd think catching your wife and your brother sneaking into a hotel together would break something inside you. Shatter a piece of your soul. But me. I didn't feel broken. I felt sharpened. That night, I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I didn't drink myself into a stupor or punch a hole in the wall like some soap opera character. I made a list. A literal list. I sat at the kitchen table with a yellow legal pad and a pen, and I wrote down every weapon I had. Not knives or guns. I didn't want blood. I wanted scars, the kind they'd carry forever. Weapon number 1, the messages. Weapon number 2, the GPS tracker. Weapon number 3, the second phone. Weapon number 4, their lies. Weapon number 5, me. The men they underestimated. By morning, I had a plan. And the first part of it involved playing dumb. Really, really dumb. Jamie got home the next evening, acting exhausted from her retreat. She dropped her fake company tote bag near the stairs, stretched her arms, and yawned like someone who had spent hours in team-building workshops, not between my brother's sheets. You wouldn't believe how bad the food was, she said. All microwave stuff. And the beds were like sleeping on concrete. I smiled and kissed her forehead. Poor thing. Want me to make your favorite tonight? Chicken Alfredo. Her eyes lit up. Seriously? You're the best. She had no idea she was walking into a trap. While she was in the shower, I retrieved the second phone from her yoga bag and copied a few new photos to my laptop. One in particular caught my eye. It was a mirror selfie. She was wearing a hotel robe, hair still wet, and I could see Caleb's tattooed arm loosely wrapped around her from behind. They were both smirking. They didn't even care about hiding it anymore. I filed the photo away in a folder titled, "For the Funeral." The next day, I called Caleb. "Hey," I said, trying to keep my tone casual. "Got a crazy idea. Want to grab a drink this weekend? Just the two of us, like old times." He hesitated for a second. "Sure. Yeah. That'd be cool. Saturday night. Harper's Bar." "You got it." We hung up, and I sat back in my chair, staring at the phone. He sounded cautious. Like part of him suspected something. Good. He should. Saturday night came fast. Harper's was our old haunt. Back in college, we used to go there after finals, sit at the same booth near the back, get cheap whiskey, talk about our future. Now I was planning the end of his. He showed up 5 minutes late, wearing that smug, fake grin he always used when he was hiding something. "Man, it's been a minute," he said, sliding into the booth. "Too long," I replied. "Glad we're doing this." The waitress came by, and we ordered 2 whiskeys neat. No ice. Just like old times. We talked about work, sports, our parents. I pretended like nothing was wrong. I wanted him relaxed. Disarmed. After the second drink, I leaned forward and said, "Hey, let me ask you something. Hypothetical." He raised an eyebrow. "Shoot. If you found out your wife was cheating on you, with your own brother, what would you do?" His face didn't move. Not a single muscle. He just stared at me, the color draining from his skin so subtly you'd miss it if you weren't looking for it. "That's dark, man," he finally said with a chuckle that didn't reach his eyes. "What kind of question is that?" "Just curious." He downed the rest of his drink and signaled the waitress for another. The next day, I planted the seed. While Jamie was doing laundry, I left a printed photo in her car, the mirror selfie from the hotel. I taped it under the sun visor, just slightly visible. Not too obvious. Just enough for her to notice it accidentally. Later that evening, she came storming into the kitchen, her face pale. "What the hell is this?" she asked, waving the photo. I looked confused. "What is it?" She shoved it at me. "Don't play stupid. Where did you get this?" I took the photo, stared at it for a moment, then handed it back. "I didn't put this in your car," I said calmly. "Maybe you left it there yourself." "Why would I do that?" "You tell me." Her eyes darted around like a cornered animal. "You're trying to set me up. Or maybe you've just been sloppy." She was breathing hard now, furious, but also scared. That was the part one focused on, her fear. The cracks in her voice. The realization that I wasn't the clueless husband anymore. "I don't know what you think you're doing," she said, trying to regain control. "But if this is some kind of game." "It's not a game," I said, cutting her off. "It's a test. And you're failing." She opened her mouth to say something else, then closed it again and walked out of the room. I didn't stop her. Let her stew in it. 3 days later, Caleb showed up at my office. Uninvited. He walked in like a man on the edge, closed the door behind him, and stood there with clenched fists. "You're screwing with me," he said. "Am I? What do you want, huh? Money? An apology? What?" I leaned back in my chair and folded my hands. "I want you to feel exactly what I felt. Every second of confusion, every second of betrayal. I want you to lose sleep, question reality, look over your shoulder, wonder who knows what. I want your life to unravel thread by thread, until all you've got left is a pile of guilt and no one to blame but yourself." He swallowed hard. "You think you're some kind of genius?" "No," I said. "Just a husband with receipts." I slid an envelope across the desk. Inside were printouts of texts, hotel receipts, and that mirror selfie. He didn't even open it. Just stared at me with this dead look in his eyes. "You're insane." "No," I said. "I'm patient. There's a difference." He stood there for a second longer, then turned and left without another word. That night, Jamie didn't come home. She didn't call, didn't text. I waited. I wanted her to. At 1:43 a.m., she finally messaged. "I need time. Don't contact me." I stared at the message for a long time, then typed. "Take all the time you want. But you'll wish you hadn't." I wasn't done yet. Not even close. They destroyed my life in silence. I was going to ruin theirs in full volume. But first, I had to find out how long it had been going on. What else had they hidden? Because something told me, this wasn't just about sex. There was more. A lot more. And I was going to dig it up. You think you've hit rock bottom when you find out your wife is sleeping with your brother. But rock bottom has a basement. And sometimes, if you dig long enough, you find out the real betrayal happened long before the affair ever started. After Jamie's message, "I need time. Don't contact me," I gave her what she asked for. No texts. No calls. No questions. She moved in with a friend, at least, that's what she claimed in a follow-up message. I didn't care where she went. I only cared about what she was hiding. Because something still didn't add up. She and Caleb had been too comfortable. Too bold. Too practiced. Affairs don't start that smoothly. This wasn't a heat-of-the-moment mistake. This was choreography. Rehearsed. Repeated. And I needed to know when the first act began. I started digging through our digital lives. Emails. Old cloud backups. Even Jamie's iCloud calendar that she forgot to unsync from our shared laptop. I found dinner reservations going back a year, some for two, with names like Ashley and Dan that didn't match anyone we knew. Fake names. Alias appointments. But then I found something else, something far more disturbing. A blocked email thread from over 2 years ago. The address was some generic Gmail, no name, just a string of letters and numbers, but the thread was between that email and Jamie's. And it was long. The subject line. Regarding the results. I clicked it open. At first glance, it looked like a conversation about medical records. Lab results. Insurance paperwork. Discussions of timing and privacy. And then, I saw my name. Or rather, the phrase. "We have to make sure Ethan never finds out." I stopped breathing. The thread was older than the affair. Way older. I scrolled to the top, reading every word, my fingers ice cold. Jamie had gone to a fertility clinic 2 years ago. Without telling me. At the time, we'd been trying to have a baby. We had even done a few basic tests at a local clinic, just routine. She told me everything was normal, and we agreed to keep trying naturally. But she'd lied. Not just a small lie. A massive, intentional deception. According to this email thread, my sperm count was, well, non-existent. I was sterile. Completely infertile. I sat there in silence, staring at the screen, trying to make sense of it. We didn't have kids. Not yet. But it was what we wanted, or so I thought. Apparently, she wanted something else. There was another message near the bottom of the thread. One that made my stomach turn. Thank you again for doing this. You have no idea how much it means to me, and to Ethan. He'll never know it wasn't his. It was addressed to C. I knew that wasn't coincidence. C as in Caleb. My brother. That night, I didn't sleep. I lay in my bed, replaying every moment over the past 2 years. The fake excitement over pregnancy tests. The accidental miscarriages. The tearful confessions that maybe it just wasn't meant to be. And all the while, I had no idea she'd already tried to get pregnant, with my brother's help. She wasn't just sleeping with him now. She had chosen him back then. She had tried to create a life with him, and raise it with me. That wasn't infidelity. That was psychological warfare. The next morning, I met with a lawyer. A calm, gray-haired man named Frank Winslow. I handed him a folder with the printouts. He flipped through them, nodding slowly. You have enough here to ruin them both, if that's your aim, he said. But if you want to file for divorce, we'll need to start laying the groundwork now. I want a divorce, I said. But not yet. He looked at me. You're not planning anything illegal, are you? No, I said. But I want to make sure that when I leave, I don't just walk away. I win. He gave a small, almost reluctant smile. That, I can help with. That evening, I texted Jamie. We need to talk. No yelling. No blaming. Just truth. Jamie, I'm not ready. Then get ready. Tomorrow night. Meet me at the house. 7 p.m. Jamie, fine. I prepared the room like it was a crime scene investigation. 2 chairs. A printed copy of every email. Every photo. Every text. And a voice recorder, placed discreetly under the table. If I was going to go through hell, I was going to drag their secrets into the light along with me. She showed up on time, wearing a gray hoodie and jeans. No makeup. No ring. She looked tired. But not guilty. Not remorseful. That told me everything. She sat down without a word. I slid the manila envelope across the table. She opened it. Saw the first photo. Flipped a few pages. Then stopped. Her face went pale. I told you, I said quietly. No yelling. Just truth. Jamie closed the folder slowly and looked up at me, her eyes glistening. How much do you know? She asked, voice barely above a whisper. Enough to know Caleb wasn't a recent mistake. She blinked fast. It wasn't supposed to go this far. You say that like it started out innocent. She didn't answer. I leaned forward. You went behind my back to get pregnant with my brother's child. Do you even hear how insane that sounds? I didn't do it to hurt you, she snapped. I did it because you wanted a family and I couldn't tell you the truth. That I'm infertile. She nodded. Slowly. You should have told me. I was scared. You were selfish. She looked away, jaw clenched. I thought if we had a child, any child, you'd be happy. We'd move forward. You wouldn't feel broken. You didn't do this for me, I said. You did it because you wanted a family. And you wanted to control how it happened. She took a long breath. I thought I could handle it. But Caleb, he didn't just donate. He kept calling. Texting. Asking for updates. And then. She closed her eyes. We met for coffee. A few times. Then dinner. I tried to push him away. But it felt like we had this shared secret. And it became something else. A relationship. She nodded. You plan to leave me? I asked. I didn't know. I told myself I wasn't, but yes. I thought about it. So why didn't you? She opened her eyes, and they were full of tears now. Because I knew you'd never recover. She still didn't get it. I didn't need her pity. I needed justice. When she left that night, I told her one thing. This is your only chance to come clean. If I find out there's more, I'll bury you both. She nodded and walked out the door. But deep down, I already knew there was more. The email thread wasn't the full picture. And I knew exactly where to look next. Caleb's ex-girlfriend. They broke up around the same time Jamie started seeing him again. Coincidence? I didn't think so. I found her on Instagram. Her name was Miranda. She used to post photos of Caleb almost weekly. Then, radio silence for over a year. I sent her a message. Just 6 words. I know what really happened. Talk. She read it. Waited 5 minutes. Then replied. Come to 34 West Avenue. Don't tell him you're coming. And that was when everything really began to unravel. Because Miranda. She had a story that would blow everything wide open. And it was worse than I ever imagined. When I pulled into the driveway of the small colonial-style house on 34 West Avenue, I was running on fumes, not from lack of sleep, but from the kind of rage that mutates into cold determination. I didn't know exactly what Miranda was about to tell me. But I knew this: when your whole world's been turned upside down, you don't ignore someone who claims to know more. Miranda answered the door almost as if she'd been watching through the window. Mid-30s, brown hair tied up in a messy bun, no makeup, and a face that looked like it had once been soft but had grown sharp from too many betrayals. Ethan, she asked, not like she didn't recognize me, more like she was surprised I actually showed. Yeah. Thanks for meeting me. Come in. Her place was modest. Lived in. Throw pillows with cheesy quotes like, "Today is a good day for a good day," and a stack of yoga magazines on the coffee table. I followed her into the living room and sat down across from her. She held a mug of tea that she never drank. So, she started, you found out about Jamie and Caleb. I nodded slowly. Found the phone in Jamie's car. That's where it all started. She gave a dry laugh. Yeah, mine started when I found Caleb's burner phone in his gym bag. That made me sit up straighter. He had one too. Oh, yeah, she said. Burner phones, secret email accounts, even a second P.O. box. Caleb's practically a one-man spy agency. Jesus Christ, I muttered. Miranda stared into her mug. He and I were together 3 years. I thought he was the one. We'd even started talking about moving in together. Then one day, I noticed he started getting distant. Less affectionate. He was always working late, never available on weekends, started locking his phone like I was some criminal trying to steal from him. And this was around the time Jamie and I were trying to conceive. She looked up at me. Exactly. You know what broke us? I found a receipt from a fertility clinic in his wallet. It was for a sperm donation. I confronted him, and he told me it was for a friend, just doing a favor. Said it meant nothing. And you believe that? At first, I wanted to. I was stupidly in love. But he got sloppy. He left an old backup phone in his gym bag one day when he went to the shower. I shouldn't have, but I looked. And there were pictures, Ethan. Of him and Jamie. In a hotel room. From almost 2 years ago. I felt my stomach drop. Miranda leaned forward, voice low. This wasn't just about your wife using him as a sperm donor. They were already sleeping together back then. I stared at her. That was a full year before I found any messages. Before Jamie ever said a word. She nodded. He told me she was married, yes, but he claimed it wasn't serious. That she was planning to leave you. That she was only staying for the money. I clenched my jaw. Funny. She used to say the same thing about him. We sat in silence for a moment. Then Miranda added, "You want to know something even sicker? Try me. She got pregnant once. About a year and a half ago. She didn't keep it." I blinked. Jamie had an abortion. She told Caleb it wasn't the right time. That she couldn't raise the baby without being divorced first. But get this, I found a message where she said she didn't want Ethan raising his kid like it was his own. I stood up. My heart was pounding in my ears. She said that. Miranda nodded, solemn. She always planned to use you. To let you think the kid was yours, maybe forever. But when it actually happened, I think she panicked. She couldn't go through with it. I didn't know, I whispered. She told me she miscarried. Miranda's expression softened for the first time. I'm sorry, Ethan. You didn't deserve this. No, I said. Neither did you. I left Miranda's house that night with a mind full of broken glass. Every memory Jamie and I shared had been rewritten. That Valentine's Day weekend trip to Asheville. She told me it was to reconnect, but Miranda had messages showing she'd spent that Saturday morning with Caleb before driving out with me. This wasn't just betrayal. It was duplication. She was living a double life, and I was the placeholder husband, the safe bet, the financial security. And my brother. He was the passion. The plan B. Or maybe, the real plan A. I didn't go home that night. I drove out to a cheap motel on the edge of town. I needed space. Silence. And a clear head. Lying there in that cold, cigarette-scented room, I made a decision. I wasn't going to lash out with rage. I wasn't going to beg or scream or throw punches. I was going to destroy them. From the inside out. The next morning, I texted Jamie. I think we can work through this. But we need honesty first. Jamie, really? One condition. Family dinner. You, me, and Caleb. She didn't respond for almost 2 hours. Then finally. Jamie, are you sure? Yes. I want everything out on the table. No more secrets. 2 nights later, they both walked into my house like ghosts. Jamie looked cautious, her makeup minimal, her hair tied back like she wanted to seem modest. Caleb looked sheepish, fake humility. He even brought a bottle of wine, like we were catching up after a football game. We sat around the table, and I poured them each a glass. I didn't touch mine. Jamie smiled nervously. So, why now? You said you wanted to talk. Yeah, I said. I've been doing a lot of thinking. Caleb leaned forward. Ethan, man, I know there's no excuse for what happened. I'm not here for apologies, I cut him off. I'm here because I think there's a way through this. Jamie blinked. What? I talked to Miranda. Their faces turned pale at the same time. Jamie was the first to crack. Why would you talk to her? She had a lot to say. Things you didn't. Caleb tried to recover. She's crazy, Ethan. She's always trying to mess things up. She told me about the baby, I said flatly. The one you aborted. Because you couldn't stand the thought of me raising Caleb's kid. Jamie's lips parted like she was about to deny it, but then she saw my eyes. And she stopped. Silence fell over the room like a suffocating fog. I'm not here to fix this, I said. I'm here to watch you both squirm. Jamie looked like she'd been slapped. Caleb tried to stand up. Okay, we're done here. You sit down, I snapped. I haven't even started. Because here's the thing, revenge isn't about screaming matches or breaking windows. It's about calculation. And I had already started building mine. I had a lawyer. I had recordings. I had enough dirt to tear their reputations apart in front of everyone they knew. But first, I wanted them to feel it, the way I had. To sit in a room and feel the weight of everything they thought was buried. Jamie's voice cracked. Ethan, what do you want from us? I leaned back, folded my arms. I want you to sweat. To wonder what I'm going to do next. To live every second knowing I could destroy you. And the truth? That was only the beginning. They left my house in silence that night. No screaming. No pleading. Just that hollow look of people who knew they were standing in a minefield, and that I was holding the map. Jamie didn't text. Caleb didn't call. For the first time in weeks, my phone was silent. I slept better than I had in months. But I wasn't done. Not by a long shot. The next morning, I walked into the office like it was any other Thursday. I work in corporate finance, dry stuff to most people, but it pays well and teaches you something important: how to weaponize information. Caleb, as fate would have it, was in the same industry. He worked for a smaller firm in the same city. I knew his clients. I knew his numbers. And most importantly, I knew how fragile that world was. A whisper about a breach of ethics, a poorly timed email leak, and suddenly your career is circling the drain. Lucky for me, I had more than whispers. I spent 3 weeks collecting everything. I didn't rush. I wanted this to be surgical. First, I met with Miranda again. I asked her for copies of Caleb's financial records, the ones she'd taken screenshots of when she'd suspected he was hiding money during their breakup. She gave them to me without hesitation. Then, I went to our old family friend Doug. He worked in compliance at Caleb's firm. I asked for a private meeting under the guise of needing advice about a conflict of interest. When we sat down at a diner on 5th Street, I opened with a quiet, calm line. Doug, what would you do if someone at your firm was mixing personal relationships with client decisions? He raised his eyebrows. You talking about Caleb? I didn't confirm or deny. I've heard things, Doug said after a pause. Some shady calls. Pushing clients into high-risk investments that benefited someone else on the back end. But nobody's brought proof. I have proof, I said, and slid a folder across the table. He opened it, flipped through the pages, and whistled under his breath. If this is real, Caleb's toast. It's real, I said. And that's just the beginning. A week later, a quiet internal investigation was launched at Caleb's firm. He didn't know it was me yet. That was the beauty of it. Meanwhile, Jamie was unraveling. She started texting me again. I want to talk. Please let's meet. You said you wanted honesty. I'm ready. I ignored her. She sent flowers to my office. I threw them in the trash. Then one night, she showed up at my door, mascara smudged, eyes red. I didn't even open it all the way. Ethan, please, she whispered, I know I messed up. I know I hurt you. But we were broken before this. You know that. You stopped touching me. You stopped looking at me like I mattered. I looked her dead in the eye. You were screwing my brother. Her voice trembled. I was lost. I was scared we'd never have a child. Caleb was there and you were, somewhere else. Don't rewrite history, Jamie. You were cheating because it was easy. And I was there, every single day. Tears welled up in her eyes. I shut the door. I wasn't doing this out of bitterness anymore. I'd moved past that. This was about justice. About making sure they didn't just feel bad, they paid. That weekend, I dropped the next domino. A flash drive. One simple black USB, left anonymously at the front desk of Caleb's office. Inside, full records of his hidden accounts, emails with Jamie where they discussed siphoning money for a future together, and a recording. Yes, I'd recorded our family dinner where Caleb admitted to using inside information to flip stocks in Jamie's name. It was all there. Dated. Documented. Ready for compliance. By Monday, Caleb was suspended pending investigation. By Wednesday, he was fired. By Friday, the SEC had been notified. But the best part? Jamie didn't know any of it yet. She only found out when Caleb came banging on her apartment door, drunk and furious, demanding to know if she'd betrayed him. Miranda told me later, they screamed at each other in the parking lot for 30 minutes. Caleb accused her of leaking everything. Jamie broke down crying, swearing she didn't know anything about it. They blamed each other. Exactly as I'd hoped. I stayed out of sight. Let the storm rage without me. But then came something I didn't expect. Jamie's mother called me. Ethan, she said, her voice shaky, I know things have been difficult. But I think you deserve to know what Jamie's going through. I know enough, I said coldly. She's not eating. She's not sleeping. She's afraid to leave the apartment. I'm not saying this to make you feel sorry for her. I don't think she ever thought you'd fight back. That stopped me. Because maybe, in her mind, I'd always been the safe one. The dependable one. The man who would forgive anything. And maybe that's why this hurt so much in the first place. Because I really was. I drove by her apartment later that night. I didn't go inside. But I saw her silhouette in the window. Sitting alone. Lights off. I don't know if I felt satisfaction. Or sadness. Or both. The next day, I received an envelope at my office. No name. Inside, a single sheet of paper. It was from Jamie. A handwritten note. You win. I lost everything. You broke me. I hope that helps you sleep at night. There was something taped to the bottom. Her wedding ring. That night, I poured myself a whiskey and stood on my balcony. The city looked different now. Colder. Sharper. But I felt lighter. Not happy. Not healed. But free. I had burned it all down. And from the ashes, I would build something better. Without lies. Without betrayal. Without them. Some victories feel like losses in disguise. That's what I kept thinking as I stared at the wedding ring Jamie had mailed me, the metal still warm from being pressed into her hand for years. I held it between my fingers, not really knowing why I hadn't thrown it away yet. Maybe because it was proof, tangible, final, of everything that had come crashing down. Or maybe because, in some twisted way, I needed it to remember just how far I'd let all of this go. I had destroyed them. Caleb was unemployed, under investigation, and blacklisted across the financial sector. Jamie was alone, disgraced, and spiraling. Everything they'd built together, their sick little fantasy life behind my back, was in ruins. And yet, standing in my apartment, staring out at the Los Angeles skyline, I didn't feel triumphant. I just felt tired. It had been about a month since the last domino fell. The world around me was quieter now. No late-night messages. No angry confrontations. Just silence. But then, as always, life doesn't stay still for long. One morning, I got a call from my father. That alone was unusual, we hadn't spoken much since everything went down. "Ethan," he said, clearing his throat, "I think we need to talk." I paused. About? It's about your brother. Anne, your mother. I blinked. Mom. What does she have to do with this? There was a long pause. I should have told you this a long time ago, he said, his voice low, but there's something you need to know before this gets any worse. I met him that evening at a diner in Glendale. The same one I'd met Doug in weeks before. It felt strange, being back here again, like some kind of full circle. Dad was already at the table when I walked in, nursing a coffee and looking about 10 years older than the last time I saw him. I should have stopped Caleb years ago, he said before I even sat down. But I didn't. And you're paying for it. I slid into the booth. What are you talking about? He rubbed his hands together, nervous. Your mom and I, we had problems. Back in the day. She was unhappy. Lonely. And one night, she confided in Caleb. He was 17. I froze. Okay. She told him things she should have told me. How she felt invisible. Like no one listened. And Caleb. I think he took that to heart. He looked up at me, and his eyes were heavy with shame. He saw what it did to her. And I think something snapped in him. He started believing that love only came when you filled the gaps others left. When you slid into the cracks. That if you were there, right there when someone felt unseen, you could take them. Make them yours. I didn't say anything. I was trying to breathe. He did it again with Miranda, my father continued. And then with Jamie. He wasn't just betraying you, Ethan. He was repeating a pattern he learned watching us. I left the diner in a daze. My father's words echoed in my head like a riddle I didn't want to solve. Was this supposed to make it easier? Knowing Caleb was twisted because of what he saw in our home growing up. It didn't. But it made one thing clear: this hadn't started with Jamie. Or even with me. It went deeper. And it wasn't over yet. 2 days later, I received another message. Not from Jamie. Not from Caleb. It was from Miranda. "Can we talk?" it said. Not about them. About us. I met her at a coffee shop on Wilshire, not really knowing what I wanted from the conversation. She looked better than the last time I'd seen her, calmer. Wiser. Maybe that's what surviving betrayal does to people. It ages them, but it also sharpens them. "I found something," she said after a few minutes of small talk. After Caleb left, I went through his old documents. I wasn't looking for anything in particular, but I found this. She slid a folded sheet of paper across the table. I opened it. It was a paternity test. Caleb's name. Jamie's name. And the word, negative. I looked up, confused. "What is this?" Miranda exhaled. Jamie was pregnant. She miscarried a month before she filed for separation. Caleb believed it was his. But this proves it wasn't. I felt my blood freeze. "Whose was it?" I whispered. Miranda looked me in the eye. "I think it was yours, Ethan." My throat tightened. All this time, Jamie had been lying not just about the affair, but about the baby. She had tried to erase the one piece of our relationship that had been real. That might have brought us back together. And Caleb, he never even knew. I drove straight to Jamie's apartment. I don't know what I was expecting, maybe some kind of apology, or a breakdown, or a fight. But when she opened the door, she looked like a ghost of herself. "Ethan," she said quietly, stepping aside. I walked in. "Why didn't you tell me?" Her eyes dropped to the floor. I couldn't. "Why?" I demanded, the paper trembling in my hand. "You knew I wanted a child. You knew we were trying. You lied to me, and you let me think the affair ruined everything. But this." Tears filled her eyes. "Because I lost it." I froze. "I lost the baby," she said, voice shaking. "And I couldn't bear to tell you. I thought you'd hate me. That you'd think it was punishment for cheating. So I told Caleb it was his. Let him carry that weight instead." I sat down on her couch, my head in my hands. "This whole time," I murmured, "I thought I was avenging a betrayal. But I didn't even know the whole story." Jamie sat beside me. "You weren't wrong to be angry. But it wasn't all lies. What we had wasn't all fake." I looked at her, and for the first time in months, I didn't feel hatred. Just sorrow. "None of this had to happen," I said. "I know." We sat there in silence for a long time. Two people who had destroyed each other, sitting in the ruins of what used to be love. Eventually, I stood up. "I don't know what comes next," I said. "But I know I can't carry this anymore." She nodded. "Neither can I." I left her apartment and didn't look back. No final kiss. No dramatic goodbye. Just quiet. And peace. It's been 6 months since then. Caleb moved out of state. No one really hears from him anymore. Jamie got a new job. We still don't speak. And me? I moved on. Not to another woman. Not to some picture-perfect happy ending. But to myself. I went back to therapy. I started running again. I found a new apartment with no memories tied to it. And one night, I took that wedding ring Jamie had sent me, and I tossed it off the Santa Monica pier. Not out of anger. But because it was time. Time to stop carrying ghosts. Time to stop looking back. Time to live again.